Tell me about military life during those times.
So when you're in the in garrison is what or in the fleet, when you're not deployed, you're basically doing what's called a workup, and this is all post 9/11. And I don't know what it's like now, and I have an idea of what it was like before that. It was kind of the same, but after 9/11, it was just you're doing a workup, which is training exercises meant to go to war. So you do these workups, and that's what we did. We did a workup, and then you deploy, and then you do a workup, and then you deploy. So it's like 6 months of infantry and war training and then deploy. In between, you might have a weekend off here and there. It's called Liberty in the Marine Corps. So we would, go to San Diego and go to the beach and stuff like that. But we were pretty busy. There were times where we'd be out in the field for a month, and it was just a lot of training because of the seriousness of what was going on post 9/11. Everybody had their game faces on constantly. Um, on deployment, then you were actually doing the things that you were training for. So that's the gist of it.
The food. How was the food?
So it's chow. It's called a chow hall. It's cafeteria food. It's not bad. It's not good. You get a lot of that. That's what's provided free for Marines. So there's the chow hall. There's also normal places off base. Like obviously, San Diego is going to have anything that you want. On Camp Pendleton, there's a Taco Bell and just normal stuff like that. But in terms of military food, you have the chow hall, which is I never had a problem with the chow hall food. It's like what you would have at a high school. And then there's MREs, which is what you would eat out in the field, and it's like survival food, and it comes with a little I can't remember what you call them, but it's a heat pack that you put water in it, and it would be a chemical reaction, and it would heat up the little packet of the entree that you could put in there. A lot of times we didn't even mess with that. You're not eating for entertainment or pleasure. You're just eating for the sustenance. So we would break them down. Um, I think we called it break them down field style or something like that. So you take all the crap out of it that you didn't need, and you would just have the MRE would go from like that to this. So you could fit more of them in your Molly pack or your the backpack basically that you wear in the military. It's called a Molly pack. There's different style, like a ruck bag, like something that you would see a mountaineer with. Um, so those some of them were okay, but everybody there was one, if I remember right, called the pork chow mein that nobody ever wanted that one. People would be trading, there'd be some money or Skittles or just whatever stuff. Chewing tobacco was a currency in the Marine Corps, and it was just to get rid of pork chow mein. That one was the only one that was really bad. But other than that, you just eat them because you needed it, and it wasn't really a pleasure sort of thing. They're not that good.
I didn't know.
Yeah, except for the lemon pound cake. That thing was awesome. If I could find how to get those again, those were good.
Um, how were the rules?
They're strict in the Marine Corps infantry at the time. In the Marines, everybody always talks about I was in during the old Corps. So the young guys that are in now, when they get out, they'll say I was in during the old Corps. So naturally, I think I was in the old Corps. And back then, this was 20 years ago, they were very strict. The senior Marines, like the battalion or the regimental sergeant major came from the Vietnam era. Those guys were still around. They were on their way out. Most of them were already gone, but there was still that grit and discipline and sacrifice. It just was all about. It was very stoic. It was a very kind of Roman legionnaire, Greek Spartan sort of thing. The book that you read is going to be Gates of Fire. It was kind of like this Spartan lifestyle. So it was very disciplined. There was no first names, even amongst the same rank and buddies. You just didn't call, Dan. It wasn't Dan. It was Harris or Hensley. It was always a last name, and you never said somebody's name without their rank in front of it if they were a rank above you. So it would never be like Sergeant Sutherland. It would never be just Sutherland. It had to be Sergeant. You would be in all kinds of trouble. It would be bad if you did that. So the rank was very important, and the military order was just prevalent. It was you could never leave it. It was just always there. The military order. no fraternization. So if you were an NCO, a non-commissioned officer, as a corporal or a sergeant or above, you did not hang out with the lower ranking people. It was very, very strict, extremely strict. You would get in major trouble for that kind of thing. I saw it firsthand. I was promoted to a non-commissioned officer, which is the rank of corporal, before my friends were that I went through basic training to the School of Infantry with, and I got, it's called non-judicial punishment, an NJP. I got NJP'd, which you can get busted down in rank for these type of things. I was NJP'd for fraternizing with those called non-rates, privates, lance corporals, because I was a non-commissioned officer. So I was in this, and Marines have to figure this gray area. It's like you're in limbo. You're not hanging out with your senior Marines because they think you're nothing. You're still a boot. If you're considered a boot, you're just a, even if you're a corporal, you're 2 years younger, you're still a boot. It's kind of like maybe what a senior or a junior thinks of a freshman coming into high school, but take that times a million. So I couldn't hang out with my friends that were lower ranking, and I surely wasn't accepted into any environment with the senior Marines, so you're just kind of on your own there until you hope some of your friends get promoted. But it's very serious.
What were the hours?
There's no set hours other than you're going to be up while it's dark and you're going to go to bed when it's dark. Usually it's something like you're up reveille 5 in the morning, maybe 4:30, maybe 5:30. You're going to do PT, and you could be at the armory cleaning weapons. You could be, if you're in the field, you may not even be going to sleep. It's just very chaotic. There is no real set. It's not a 9 to 5 sort of thing. It's always different. But you can rest assured you're going to be up early and you're going to be going to bed late 90% of the time.
What did you do with your free time?
We would just want to generally just escape the Camp Pendleton, or if we were having liberty on a weekend, we would just want to get away. So we would go to San Diego, to the beach, sometimes to Vegas. They'd have the Marine Corps ball at Las Vegas. Anything to just separate ourselves from the Marine Corps for a couple days is what we would do. Mexico, once you hit a certain rank, you can go to Mexico. Tijuana was right there. Rosarita. So, there's a lot to do in Southern California. So we would just try to soak that in. We would do a lot of Marines get into surfing or wakeboarding, going to the mountains. Just San Diego, there's plenty to do. We were in San Diego a lot.
Do you know how to surf?
No, I've tried it. I'd never got the knack for it. I'm not that coordinated. I'm sure with more time I could. I met my wife while I was in, so we were just there not long ago. So every year, as much as we can, we go back there, and I try to take my kids to the beach as much as possible. So maybe someday I'll try it, but we call them boogie boards, or it's like body boards. That's what most of us, that's a lot easier, and we did that a lot. I had my own, and we would just go to Oceanside and do that. That's pretty fun. But yeah, the whole standing up thing, that takes a little bit more skill than I ever had.
Yeah, I've always wanted to surf.
Yeah. Well, you see them do it with ease, and if you've done bodyboarding, you know how fun it is to ride that. So if you're standing up, you can imagine that it's just the wind is going to be more. You have a better view. It would be cool, and you see a lot of that. You see a lot of Navy and Marines that get into kind of the beach sports.
What kinds of uniforms were issued to you?
We mostly wore camouflage utilities, just camis is what we called it, or BDUs, battle dress uniform, I think is technically what it's called. So people that are in different occupations, and when you're in the infantry, you mostly just hang around the infantry. So you're just going to see camis all the time, but there are different dress uniforms that we would wear for certain events. The Marine Corps ball, you're in the blues, which is probably the most symbolic uniform out of all the branches, the Marine Corps blues. It's a very, very, very cool looking uniform. Then there's the alphas, which is a green sort of more business professional look, not really super dressy. I probably wore that like 2 times the whole time I was in. And then there's alphas and deltas, which if you're like a recruiter, imagine what the recruiter wear. It's kind of like a button-up shirt, sort of their business attire. But when you're in the infantry, you don't really have those around that often. You have them, but they're not usually on.
What was the weather like?
So that's a multifaceted question. It depends on where I'm at, and I've been a
Yeah.
lot of different places. In San Diego, it's the perfect. It's the best weather in the world as far as I'm concerned. I think it's just, around 70, 72. It doesn't rain all that often. It's just really, it's great weather. I really like Southern California weather. That's probably a big reason a lot of people want to go there. Um, on deployment, if you're in Iraq, it was like 120 degrees some days. It's just super, just incredibly hot, and it felt like when we would be driving around, like you're in a clothing dryer, just with the hot wind, and it just was hot. It was just hot, and you have all that gear on. You have a flak jacket, which is like a bulletproof vest on, and then a load-bearing vest with all of your ammo and stuff, and you're carrying your weapons, and you got your camis on. It's just hot. It was just hot. 90 degrees felt cool. When it was nighttime and it got down to 90, you're like, this is getting cold out. You just get acclimated to heat, and so yeah, depending on where we were at, you just get a whole different experience with weather. Like we went to Hawaii because after our first workup, we were part of a Marine Expeditionary Unit, which to be special operations capable, which is the designation we were supposed to have, and we did get it after we had to do a test. You're evaluated by a bunch of different military special operations inspectors, basically evaluators. We failed our first one, so we deployed anyway. But when we were on the Bonhomme Richard was the name of the naval vessel. We were supposed to go to Hawaii and have Liberty, but that Liberty was canceled because we had to redo the raid package for another evaluation. So up in the mountains, there's some place called PTA. I can't remember what that means, but it's not what you imagine a Hawaii. It was just red dirt. It was muddy. It would rain the whole time. It was cold. It was miserable. So you have to in the Marine Corps, you have to get comfortable being uncomfortable. That's a really good way of thinking about the endurance and like the durability for being in the Marine Corps infantry. It's not about being strong or fast as about just being able to survive. Can you be uncomfortable? How long can you be uncomfortable? And that's kind of how it was. So it doesn't matter what the temperature was like, you better just get used to it.